What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Time. I am your host, Jacob Cutler, the Fantasy Guy, and today I have episode number 31. Yes, another weekly edition of Stardom, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of Them. And of course, we have the return of the injury report. Not as many injuries as we had last week, but there are some heavy hitters on the injury report this week, so we will definitely discuss all of that. Welcome back. If you guys like what you see at any point during this video, please just smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, and then just tap on that bell notification. That way, anytime new episodes drop, and they drop every Wednesday and Friday, you're right there to consume the content, because we are always dropping the knowledge. That is what we do here at Fantasy Time, right? If you are not growing, you are dying. So make sure you guys smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, and then just tap on that bell notification to stay up to date on all the latest content. But we got a nice little quick intro for you. Without further ado, let's get into it in another weekly edition of Stardom, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of Them. Alrighty, let's get into this. Yes, if you are new to the channel, new to the Fantasy Time episodes, new to just fantasy football, new to how all this works, let me break it down for you. So, for Stardom, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of Them, basically what I've done is I normally have 4, but we're dropping it down to 3. I have 3 position players for you. I have 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 3 tight ends for you, all of which fall under the category of Stardom or Sit 'em, right? And then the Get Rid of Them is just kind of a flex category. If I feel that somebody needs to go down to the Get Rid of Them's, then we'll add them on there. This week we have 2 Get Rid of Them's in the quarterbacks. That's very easy, very simple. We'll get into that, but that's just kind of how it works, right? So without further ado, let's get into it. We always start with the Stardom. Starting out with the quarterbacks, your number 3 quarterback this week on the Stardoms is Mr. Derek Carr. Yes, Derek Carr, last week against Vegas, or against the Cowboys, I don't know what to make of this team. I don't know what to make of this team, right? First they're on fire, then they cool down, then they heat up, then they cool down. Now they're back to lukewarm. So we shall see, but I like the matchup against Washington. Washington coming off that tough defensive win against the Seattle Seahawks, but the Raiders are much better than the Seattle Seahawks. So Derek Carr is your number 3 quarterback this week, taking on Washington. Your number 2 quarterback this week is the man that I am going to see in person. I cannot wait. Is Mr. Joe Burrow. Yes, Joey is taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. This Charger team is like a wave, right? That's the best way I can describe them. It's basically like they're good, they're bad. They're good, they're bad. They're good, they're bad, right? I mean, you don't know what it is with this team. You don't know what team you're going to get, but I expect Joe Burrow on Sunday taking on the Los Angeles Chargers defense. Isn't the best. I expect him to go to work. So Joey B is your number 2 quarterback this week. And your number 1 is a man who needs a rebound game like no other. He had a decent game last week against Green Bay, and that is Mr. Matt Stafford. Yes, Matt Stafford is your number 1 quarterback this week, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think he's going to absolutely obliterate. If he doesn't obliterate, there is a problem in Los Angeles. But Matt Stafford taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars is your number 1 quarterback this week for the Stardoms. Now, normally, we have them in some other categories. We do have some honorable mentions, right? We don't have any honorable mentions for the quarterbacks this week, but stay tuned for the honorable mentions. Next up, for the running backs, your number 3 running back this week is Elijah Mitchell from the San Francisco 49ers. This kid's a baller. This kid is a straight baller, and when he's in there and when he's healthy, he just gets fantasy points. He gets the job done. Dominating last week. I think he absolutely dominates this week against Seattle, who is atrocious, who is so bad. They're just bad, right? So Elijah Mitchell is your number 3 running back. Your number 2 running back this week is the man filling in on this team right here is Alexander Mattison. I think it's Mattison, all right? Jeez Louise. Alexander Mattison. I don't know why I couldn't say that. Alexander Mattison is your number 2 running back, with Dalvin Cook being sidelined next couple weeks with injuries. Alexander, he always comes in and he always dominates. If you look at his games where Dalvin was out, he put up some nice 20-point games. So Alexander Mattison against the Detroit Lions I think he runs all over this team. I think this is a guaranteed 20-point fantasy game. If it's not, there's something wrong there as well. So Alexander Mattison taking on the Detroit Lions, number 2 running back this week. And your number 1 running back this week is, and it's going to be a good game, is Austin Eckler. And most of you are like, what? Austin Eckler? Of course, well, some people may not against Cincinnati. I mean, they're up and down. They're up and down, right? Austin's getting his fantasy points, but are the other guys getting fantasy points, right? Last week, they kind of did. Not really, right? Justin Herbert didn't have a good week, right? So it's hard to say. It's hard to say, but I think Austin Eckler, one thing is just to know, right? Just like Joe Mixon, he's going to get his touches. He's going to get his yards. So I think against that Cincinnati Bengals defense, I think he's able to run it somewhat, and get the job done and score some points. But Austin Eckler is your number 1 running back this week. And now we have some honorable mentions. Your only honorable mention this week, and for those of you who've been following along, you're going to be very shocked, is Myles Gaskin. Yes, the man who I had as a sleeper this year, the man who should be taking off his career, but it's just been a lull. Somehow, some way, he has found a way to make it somewhat of a good season. So, Myles Gaskin's taking on the New York Giants, who are just the weirdest team in the NFL. Like, seriously, the weirdest team in the NFL. Myles Gaskin taking on the Giants. I got to measure one and only honorable mention at running backs this week. Moving on to your wide receivers. Your number 3 wide receiver this week is T. Higgins. Yes, not Jamar Chase, not Tyler Boyd. We're going T. Higgins. That length that we saw last week, I think we're going to see it this week, where he's able to moss people, use his height, use his strength, use what God-given talent that he has to actually be relevant. And it's nice to see because he's a great wide receiver. So T. Higgins this week, after going off last week, I think he does it again this week against the Los Angeles Chargers. So T. Higgins is your number 3 wide receiver this week. Your number 2 wide receiver is, and some of you are going to be kind of shocked, but is Brandon Cooks from the Houston Dumpster Fire Texans. Yes, there's only one person having a good season on that team, and that is you're staring at this picture right now. It is Brandon Cooks. He needs to find another team. I know he's been on a crap load of teams, and he should have just stayed with the Saints, committed to the Saints, and his career would have been perfect with Drew Brees there. But he didn't. He didn't, and he went to New England, then he went somewhere else, and now he's on the Houston Dumpster Fire Texans. So Brandon Cooks, your number 2 wide receiver, taking on a Colts defense. That's tough, but I think he gets one of those garbage touchdowns or one of those like fluky touchdowns to save his day. So Brandon Cooks, your number 2 wide receiver. Your number 1 wide receiver this week is a rookie. The kid went off. Is Jalen Waddle. Yes, if you have Jalen Waddle, please start him. He is such a viable wide receiver with Tua at quarterback. No other quarterback back there makes him as viable as Tua does. So Jalen Waddle taking on the New York Giants. They should dominate this team. If the Dolphins want to prove that those first 7 games were whatever, a fluke, right? You gotta win this game here. So Jalen Waddle I have as your number 1 wide receiver this week, taking on the New York Giants. Now, we do have 3 honorable mentions for you this week. So, your number 1 honorable mention is Kendrick Bourne. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, because when he was on the Niners, I never liked him. But now he goes to the Pats and he's suddenly productive. He suddenly can catch the ball, which was his biggest issue. Kendrick Bourne taking on a tough Buffalo defense, but Kendrick Bourne with Mac Jones, they have a good connection going right now. 2 touchdowns last week. Let's see what he can do this week. But Kendrick Bourne, your number 3 honorable mention. Your number 2 honorable mention is Darnell Mooney. Yes, Darnell Mooney, your another honorable mention. The kid has been lighting it up. Clearly the number 1 receiver in Chicago. Probably the only one who does anything basically of any relevance there. But Darnell Mooney taking on the Arizona Cardinals. It's going to be tough. But again, I can see him being the only one scoring. So Darnell Mooney taking on the Cardinals, your number 2 honorable mention. And your number 1 honorable mention is Hunter Renfrow. Yes, when Derek is on, Hunter Renfrow is on. And when Derek is able to move the ball down the field, a lot of the times it's to Hunter. So Hunter Renfrow taking on that Washington defense. I think he gets in between defenders. I think he gets behind defenders. And I think he dominates. So Hunter Renfrow is your number 1 honorable mention this week for the wide receivers. All right, and last up, we got the tight ends, right? So the 3 tight ends, right? Number 3 tight end this week is Logan Thomas. Yes, the man who returned from injury last week. Surprisingly, they said he was set to return, but I didn't know if he was going to come back last week or this week, but Logan Thomas is definitely worth a start if you have him at tight end. Robbed of a touchdown last week. Definitely don't think he's gonna be robbed of a touchdown this week. But Logan Thomas at tight end, solid producer. Your number 2 tight end is Dawson Knox, getting back on his train of dominance. Yes, it took a little bit after injury, but Dawson Knox is back to his usual domination at tight end. So if you have Dawson Knox, put him in there, get him in there. And your number 1 tight end is Zach Ertz, taking on Chicago. I think Kyler comes back. I think Zach Ertz and Kyler connect a couple of times here and get a score at least. If not, Colt McCoy, that would seem to be his favorite target, was Zach Ertz. So expect him to get the ball more. Either way, whatever quarterback it is, I think Zach Ertz is a solid play this week, taking on Chicago. And that'll do it for this week's Stardoms. Next up, we got the Situms. All right, moving on to the Situms, right? Moving on to the Situms, we got 3 and everything, right? 3 and everything this week. Let's get it going. So starting with our quarterbacks, your number 3 quarterback this week is Mac Jones. Yes, I know the kid has been absolutely rolling. Clearly the best QB in the draft. I cannot believe it. I honestly cannot believe it. But Mac Jones has been rolling this year, getting better seemingly week in and week out. This is going to be his best and biggest matchup to date this year, taking on Buffalo on Monday night. We shall see. Buffalo has to have this one. Buffalo has to have this win. But Mac Jones taking on Buffalo, your number 3 sit-em this week. I think that defense is able to get the job done and kind of slow down the Mac attack, right? Mac Jones. Your number 2 quarterback this week is Justin Herbert. Yes, the man who... he's so hard to figure out. Because the Chargers are just such a weird team. They're such a weird team, right? They're good, they're bad, they're good, they're bad, they're good, they're bad. Taking on a Cincinnati Bengals defense that is coming off a tough win at home against Pittsburgh. I think they do the same thing to Justin and contain him and stop him. So Justin Herbert, your number 2 sit-em quarterback. Your number 1 sit-em quarterback, and it's going to be a little bit surprising, but I'm taking a leap here, is Josh Allen. Yes, he's only had 2 bad games this season. I think that New England defense, I think it's a very defensive game that we're going to see on Monday. And I think the New England defense is able to stop Josh Allen for the most part and kind of contain him to where it's not that great of a fantasy game. So Josh Allen is your number 1 sit-em quarterback. Moving on to your running backs. Your number 3 running back is James Robinson. Yes, the man has been in the Stardoms more times than I can count. But James Robinson against the Los Angeles Rams, against a defense that needs to put on a performance, make a statement performance. I think they make a statement performance against this Jacksonville team. So James Robinson, your number 3 sit-em. Your number 2 sit-em is David Montgomery. Yes. Never really able to get really that much traction. Had 1 or 2 games where he looked really good. But other than that, this Chicago Bears team needs a lot of help. The Chicago Bears need a lot of help. And David Montgomery, unfortunately, he suffers from that. So David Montgomery is your number 2 sit-em running back this week. Your number 1 sit-em running back this week is Melvin Gordon. Yes, Javonte Williams was on fire last week. Was absolutely on fire. So Melvin Gordon couldn't really get it going. Melvin could not really get it going. So I think against KC, against a team that is absolutely rolling right now, which is Kansas City, I think they're stopping him. Here. I don't think that run game is as effective against the Kansas City Chiefs as it was against the Chargers. So Melvin Gordon is your number 1 sit-em this week at running back. Moving on to the wide receivers, your number 3 wide receiver is Marquise Hollywood Brown. Yes, only having about 3 bad games this year, which is very surprising. Very surprising based on if you just watch him, you don't know how he gets fantasy points, right? But Marquise Hollywood Brown taking on that Pittsburgh defense, he's a sit-em this week. I don't like the matchup. He is a little bit injured, so he's working through that. Lamar's going to come back. Lamar didn't look the sharpest against the Browns. Division matchups are tough. That's why I don't really like this play. So Marquise Hollywood Brown, your number 3 sit-em this week. Your number 2 sit-em this week is Elijah Moore. I know, the kid who has been popping off, right? Jamar Chase had the best rookie first half as a receiver. Elijah Moore was having the best second half as a wide receiver. He was on fire, and then, oh man, the return of the rookie happened. and Zach Wilson comes. And Zach Wilson significantly hampers the production of Elijah Moore. I think it's proven. It is proven. Zach Wilson is a cancer to Elijah Moore. I'm going to say it right now. So in order for Elijah Moore to succeed, Zach Wilson needs to not be at quarterback. Plain and simple. Elijah Moore, your number 2 wide receiver this week. And your number 1 wide receiver this week is Michael Gallup. Yes, I know some people are going to throw him in there. I just think Cowboys have too many options coming back. I think Cowboys have too many options in general for it to focus on. I know Dalton Schultz is now one of his new favorite targets. CeeDee Lamb, obviously. Amari when he comes back. That's just going to take... Michael Gallup is just going to have to take a back seat. Tony Pollard right now, right? So Michael Gallup is your number 1 wide receiver sit-em this week. And last up, we got the tight ends, right? 3 tight ends for you. And your number 3 tight end is Hunter Henry. Yes, the man who has revitalized his career, hasn't been injured, thank goodness, because he is a fantastic tight end. I know he's on the Patriots, and I don't like the Patriots at all, but he is such a reliable tight end. It's nice to see that he's actually healthy. But Hunter Henry is Matt Jones' security blanket, but I think that defense knows that, looks out for that, and tries to cover that. So Hunter Henry is your number 3 tight end this week on the sit-ems. Your number 2 tight end, and I'll be honest, is a man who might not even play, that's why we're going to put him on the sit-ems, is Pat Freiermuth. Yes, suffering an injury, suffering a concussion. We'll see, considered day-to-day. We will see him on the injury report. But Pat Freiermuth is your number 2 sit-em this week against Baltimore. I just think with those injuries, with the concussion, stuff like that, I don't like the play. So Pat Freiermuth, your number 2. Your number 1 is Kyle Pitts. I mean, talk about a disappointing rookie season. Holy moly. Because when he gets the ball, he shows flashes of what he has and what he can bring to the team. And Matt is just not able to supply him with anything. So Kyle Pitts, your number 1 sit-em tight end this week. And mainly it's just because of his quarterback. And that's all I have for you on this week's sit-ems. Next up, we got only two, but next up, we got the get rid of ems. And finally, we got the get rid of ems. I only got 2 for you. And both of them are in the quarterbacks. Your number 2 get rid of em quarterback this week is Ryan Tannehill. Get him off your team. Go find somebody else. The man is not a fantasy quarterback. I mean, it's proven. The man is not a fantasy quarterback. And with zero zilch nada weapons left on his team, drop him. Find somebody else. I guarantee you can find somebody else out there. I guarantee you. And your number 1 get rid of him this week is, and we just talked about him, is Matt Ryan. He started off so strong, started off having such a good season, and now it just looks like absolute doo-doo. I mean, is Calvin Ridley that important? Is he that important? Like, holy moly, but he can't even do anything with the ball. So Matt Ryan, because of this, is your number 1. Get rid of him. Get him off your team. Find somebody else who is productive. Stop wasting a roster spot on these 2 gentlemen. And that is all I have for you on this week's Stardom, Sit-em, or Get Rid of Them. Alrighty, and the last thing that we got to talk about, and we talk about it every week, and it's because I feel like it's so gosh heckin' important. That's why. But we're going to get into it in another weekly edition of the Injury Report. Alrighty, let's get into this. Thank goodness we do not have as many as we had last week. Last week was crazy. If you weren't here for last week, we had 23 injuries last week. This week we only have 15. Let's get into it. Starting us off, and not really an injury, but both of them are still on the injury report. Number 1 is DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, still dealing with that hamstring injury. Head coach Cliff Kingsbury is hopeful he will return on Sunday. So not too, assuring there that he's going to play. He's hopeful. We shall see. But DeAndre Hopkins still dealing with that hamstring injury. Next up on the same team, we got Kyler Murray, right? Still dealing with his ankle injury. And head coach Cliff Kingsbury is hopeful he will be available on Sunday. Now, what's the difference between he will return and he will be available? You want him to return, right? You don't want to start Colt and then throw Kyler in and out, right? Between series. That doesn't make any sense. So, interesting choice of verbiage there he used. But Cliff Kingsbury is hopeful that he will be available on Sunday from that ankle injury. Next up, we got, and this one's a big one. This one is a big one, and we talked about it a little bit earlier on in the season. We got Christian McCaffrey, CMC. Ankle injury, placed on IR, out for the season. And quite honestly, stay out. Stay out, Christian. Stay out. Stay out for a year, man. Take a year off. Recoup your body. You keep rushing back. You keep getting injured. You're tarnishing your career, bro. It's not good. Christian McCaffrey on IR again. So he needs to stay out. Fully get your health fully back, right? Rehab that hamstring, rehab that ankle, rehab everything that is possibly wrong with your body, because you are a difference maker in the backfield, a 100% difference maker. So Christian McCaffrey out for the season. Tough one. Next up, we got same team, Sam Darnold, right? We thought he was going to be done for the season, but now he has resumed throwing after that shoulder surgery. So he's going to be reevaluated after the bye week. So this little Cam Newton experiment could come to an end very, very quickly. Very quickly if Sam Darnold comes back. But Sam Darnold's resumed throwing. He'll be reevaluated after the bye week. Next up, and this one's a big one too, we got DeAndre Swift. Yes, for all my DeAndre Swift owners, Dan Campbell is doubtful that he plays. Is doubtful he plays on Sunday with the shoulder injuries. Probably going to keep him out. So Jamal Williams might get elevated. I'm spacing on who else they have as the running backs because it's the Detroit Lions. But my DeAndre Swift owners, that is a big, big loss if he doesn't play. Next up, we got Aaron Rodgers, and the only reason he is on here is because Oh, Aaron. Aaron Rodgers, the only reason he's on here is because he said that he doesn't plan to undergo any type of surgery, so he doesn't expect to miss any time. So for my Aaron Rodgers QB owners, some good news there. But he doesn't plan to undergo surgery, so he's going to play with that broken toe. We'll see how it goes. Next up, we got one of his favorite targets is Randall Cobb, right? Suffering from a groin injury, considered day to day. So we shall see. Coming on strong since they brought him back, right? So Randall Cobb. For my Randall Cobb owners, he's day-to-day with that groin injury. Next up, we got Dan Arnold, and a lot of you are like, who the hell is Dan Arnold? Tight end, solid tight end, solid tight end. MCL sprain, expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, which is basically ending his season. So Dan Arnold, expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Most likely going to be done for the season. I think he should be done for the season. Nothing really to come back to there in Jacksonville. So Dan Arnold out for the tight ends. Big tight end. And another tight end going down. We got Darren Waller, and this one's huge, right? Knee injury on Christmas. Avoided major knee injury. That's what the doctor said. He avoided a major knee injury, which is awesome. Consider week to week, though, doubtful for Sunday. So for Darren Waller owners, you're going to need to find something in the meantime. He might be gone for a couple weeks, well, at least a few weeks. So, Darren Waller, knee injury, avoided major injury, considered week to week, doubtful for Sunday. Next up, we got Darrell Henderson Jr. from the Rams, right? Quadricep injury, considered day to day. We'll see what happens. They're expecting to get Cam Akers back off that Achilles injury. We'll see. I don't know how explosive he's going to be, but right now Darrell Henderson is their running game there in the Rams. So quadricep injury considered day to day. Next up, we have, and it's the man who makes all the news, right, is Odell Beckham Jr. has been diagnosed with a hip pointer. Okay, diagnosed with a hip pointer, considered day to day. Most likely will play on Sunday, but that hurts. That's a hurtful injury, especially if someone's going to come on the side of you and hit you on your hip while you're playing. That's going to even hurt it even more. So Odell Beckham Jr., just watch out for that. Diagnosed with a hip pointer, considered day to day. Next up, we got, and this is a big one right here. We got Dalvin Cook, right? Dalvin Cook, we saw him dislocate his shoulder on Sunday against the Niners. He is expected to miss at least 2 weeks. So, Dalvin Cook owners, you're going to have to find something to do. Now, if you have Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, and Christian McCaffrey, A, you're just very unlucky. B, start using that waiver wire. Start using that waiver wire to see what you can pick up. And next up, we got Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is only on here because he's dealing with some ankle soreness. Not really ankle injury, just some soreness. Expected to play on Sunday. However, he did wind up on the injury report. Have to put him on here. Next up, we got Pat Freiermuth. Suffered a concussion like we talked about in the Sinems, right? He suffered a concussion, considered day to day. With that, I don't like the play. Plop him on the bench. Let him rest. Pat Pat Freiermuth suffered concussion, considered day-to-day. And our last guy up, and this one's a massive one because he's basically the entire offense of this team, is Deebo Samuel. Groin injury, expected to miss 1 to 2 weeks. How this is going to affect the 49er offense, we are going to see on Sunday. But this could potentially be a massive injury to a team that has to win basically every game from here on out, right? So Deebo Samuel, groin injury, expected to miss 1 to 2 weeks. And that's all I have for you on this week's Injury Report. Alrighty, and that's gonna do it. Nice and quick episode again. Woo, we are just rolling along through this year. We're on week 13 already. 4 more weeks of this year. I can't believe it. I cannot believe that we have made it through a full season. I can't believe that I've consistently been able to drop videos for you guys this entire season. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this season has in store for us. And this season is long from over, right? If you looked at the AFC playoff picture, if you looked at the NFC playoff picture, it is neck and neck between basically every single team. It's crazy. The only team that's been eliminated from the playoffs is the Detroit Lions, right? Everybody else, essentially, if they go on a run, they have an outside chance of making the playoffs. How crazy is that? This has been one of the craziest NFL seasons I think I've ever seen. I think we've ever seen, right? So if you guys like what you guys are seeing at any point, right, smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, and then just tap on that bell notification. That way, anytime new episodes drop, and they drop every Wednesday and Friday, you're right there to consume the content, because we're always dropping the knowledge. It's right there at your feet. You just got to pick it up, shove it in that head of yours, shake it around, and boom, better fantasy player, better knowledgeable football human being, right? Because if you're not growing, you are dying. So smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, just tap on that bell notification, stay up to date on all the latest content. If you want more Fantasy Time, follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Time 2021. Follow us on Facebook at The Fantasy Guy 2021. And then follow us, obviously, on YouTube at Fantasy Time 2021. All three ways you can get in contact with us. You can find more information on Fantasy Time. You can just get all of the Fantasy Time that you can handle, right? And then of course, the links for both the fantasy projections Google Sheets and the Start 'em, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of 'em Google Sheets will be down in the description. Click on those links, download ingest all the content on there. Everything we talk about is in these Google Sheets. Everything that we talk about is in these Google Sheets. So if you ever want to see more information, if you ever want a recap of what we talked about, just go to these Google Sheets. All the information that I am pulling for you guys is all on these Google Sheets. So do me a favor, check them out, like them, tell me what you think. I'm always here I'm always willing to hear from you guys, my audience, because I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. As always, thank you. But for Fantasy Time, I am your host, Jacob Cutler, the Fantasy Guy, and until Friday, I'll see you.